Well, we were playing before the rest of you all got here. We were trying new things in Zoom, so that was kind of fun. So you should come early so you can play games. Play games with Lori on Friday mornings. It's just so much fun. But I'm so happy that you're here. It's so good to have another Friday. This has been a very busy week and it went really, really fast. I don't know how yours was. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear what you did this week. If there are things you did that you feel like that was good. I learned something from it, or it fed my soul, or I don't know, just some good positive experiences that you've had, in nurturing your heart and developing that mother culture, any of those things that we've been talking about or trying to get better about. I'd love to hear if anyone has something they want to share.
Okay, so I'll share something.
Awesome.
We were driving home from Maine. Yay, I'm home. And we stopped off in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so we went to Chocolate World because you can't go to Hershey, Pennsylvania, not go to Chocolate World. And we did the history tour on the trolley around Hershey. And it reminded me of just well-educated heart, because the stories that they were telling about Milton Hershey, what an incredible person. He built up this whole city based on, his factory, and he and his wife could never have kids. And so they actually built this school for underprivileged kids to come tuition free. And they don't live in dorms, they live in homes. And the school is still going today, and it's strictly run off the interest from the trust fund that he created for this school. They haven't even touched the trust fund yet. And at the age of 17, the kids get to move into kind of like, there's 4 kids in like an apartment, and they are given a budget to figure out their groceries. They have to do their own laundry. There is like a person that will check on them, just like it was just so neat because they got to learn all of these skills on how to get themselves to school, and they could work on the dairy farms around the area. So it was just so neat to hear what he has done. And that whole town, because what he has done with that factory, that whole town, not one person lost their job or suffered through the Great Depression. And it was so interesting. And I loved it. And I was just like, I need to go home and notebook about this so I don't forget all about that. And it was just, I loved it. And it was just it fed my soul, because it was a hard trip home. And I needed that quick break just to, just soften my heart a little. And so that's what I got to experience. And Linnell says she went there too.
Yeah, that's really cool. And why do we not know that story? Did anybody else know about that beforehand?
No. And his wife died so young. She was 42 when she died.
Oh, wow.
And he moved out of the house that he lived in for a while, and then he moved back into, but he just lived in the little upstairs apartment. And he has just this modest home, and he built homes for all of his CEOs, and it's a beautiful town. But now I really want to dive in and learn more.
Yes. Oh, I think that's so neat. And I love to hear about things like that. So Lindsay Bunting and I were talking because we had an amazing day yesterday. I'm sure we'll share a little bit about it sometime today. But we were talking about the difference between like a book club or something like that, which there's nothing wrong with that, but between that kind of an experience and a Mothers of Influence circle, where with the Mothers of Influence circle, which can be just 2 people, right? 2 women getting together and sharing of the difference being, it's not, we all read the same book and we're all coming to talk about the same chapter, which again, I'm not saying that that's bad, and I'm not saying that there aren't great things that can come from that. But it's so awesome to have different people having different experiences and learning about different things, and then all coming together and sharing about what they learned and what they experienced and having discussions about that. Don't you think? Does that feel different to you? Anyway, Lindsay and I were talking about how that just felt it's so uplifting, and I don't know, it's kind of like it's kind of, to me, it's like a cookie exchange, you know. So if you've got 10 people and everybody's bringing a dozen cookies, then you get to go home, you know, you bring one kind of cookie and you go home with, you know, 10 different kinds of cookies. And so does that make sense? Does my my little silly simple analogy work for anybody else? Yeah, Lindsay Bunting.
I like, where did we hear the potluck example of like someone's bringing turkey and someone's bringing mashed potatoes and
Oh, that
like
was, I think, in
like
our little conversation with Marley and Jen and Rachel.
someone said that, and I liked that analogy of like we all bring something and it together it makes like a whole feast.
Yeah, right. Right. It's okay. And even if two people bring rolls, then awesome, because you get to try two different kinds of rolls, you know. So it's not a bad thing for a couple of the people to have experienced something similar, because they're each going to have a different take on it, right? And they're going to bring something different about it. Anyway, I love what we do here, and I love what we get out of it. I just think that's so neat. So now we all know a little bit more about, a little something about this school and in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and this wonderful little experience. And then Linnell shared, hold on, let me bring it back up. She shared, it was also a great example of somebody trying again and again until he found the perfect recipe for Hershey's chocolate. So that's another great lesson. I love that. Love it. Okay, thanks. Anybody else have something they want to share from this past week? Yeah, Mercedes.
So the backstory brief is that my husband lost his job. So we're now in like lockdown finance mode, you know, and we're fine. We have savings and it's fine. And we've run the numbers and it's fine. But like, I'm now in this, it's changed the way that I'm like providing for my family. It's changing like the groceries that I buy. So it's been about a week and a half now. So it's changing the groceries that I buy, the meals that I plan. I'm doing a lot more like baking from scratch. And so it's giving me a lot of opportunity to kind of, well, first it's fall, so it's fun to like bake more and, you know, eat all those yummy things. We were talking about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, but that idea that I am creating, that I'm nourishing my family like physically in my own creative ways, you know, trying to use what's already in the pantry instead of having to go like what I would normally do, just go to the store and buy all the things, you know. And so now it's okay, well, what can we make this week that's really inexpensive? Because what we don't want to suffer is homeschool. And so I'm keeping my, hopefully for as long as it lasts, the my Libraries of Hope subscription. So like we're trying to figure out ways to cut back on things that are easy to cut back on to keep the things that are really important. But the cutting back itself has also created an opportunity for me to think about what I'm doing to nourish my family physically, literally. And also, you know, this morning I sat down, it's Australia this week with my little tiny ones. And so we made a little like kangaroo pouches. And normally I would have perhaps bought something to do something with them. And instead I was just like, okay, well, what can we do? We have brown paper bags in the cupboard. Let's get some paper bags out. And we punched some holes in them. And I had my 3-year-old, you know, string through yarn, and like we made little pouches that they tied around there, like super simple, but things that I might not have thought of if I hadn't been in this particular mindset. And so I'm able to kind of turn a lot of this around, high stress certainly, but turn a lot of it around to be, okay, well, this is an opportunity that I have to now really consider what I'm doing for my family in a really concrete way.
I forgot I muted myself. I love that you're taking it that way, that's what you're doing with it. I love that. And it reminded me of the story that Marlene shares about their financial situation that got very bleak, you know, and they got down to the point where they really didn't have much of anything. And they moved back to Pennsylvania, or moved back to wherever it was that her daughter was, and lived in their unfinished basement. When they went back there, they just had one small trailer with what was left of the belongings, and that they were thinking, well, how are we going to do this work now? In this situation that we're in. And the Lord basically told them, okay, now that we've gotten rid of all the distractions, we can really get to work. So we're beginning to learn how our God works, right? And while that might be a little bit scary, it's also a beautiful thing. The scripture that has come to me this week, and it's been part of my meditation this week, is Romans 8:28. And it basically says that all things work together for good for they that love the Lord or trust God or something like that. And then I had just listened to that, had it be in my meditation and thought about that. And then I finally went to the scripture. And then there's another phrase after that says something about those that are called to do his work. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting little additional part of that. And that's beautiful. So, and it was this reminder that it doesn't mean that we look at the situation and say, oh, this is really good for me. I really like this situation and I know it's going to be great, but it's that all things can work for our good and that they really will. If we trust him, we know that. So even though we can't see why this is happening or what the good could possibly be in the situation, if we trust him and if we know him, then we know, but it will work for my good. There's something good in here. There's some kind of good growth or strengthening or experience something anyway. But I've loved thinking about that. Okay, anybody else? And Mercedes, and I feel for you. For us, it's been a 7-year trial that is still going on. So, it's just like, oh, okay, all right. Anyway, so I understand. I understand. Okay, anybody else thoughts about anything from this week? I'm taking notes, sorry. And I was just going to say the phrase that keeps coming up, a word that keeps coming up to me this week, just from multiple conversations with Marley, is abundance. And I thought how Mercedes, that you are working at this from a place of abundance rather than a place of scarcity. And that suggests faith. And I love that. So. Okay. Nobody else have a thing that they want to lead with? That probably sounds more like, because I probably say things that make you think, well, no, it's not something to lead with. I had this thought, but okay, never mind. And I don't mean to do that. So anybody just have the tiniest little thought that they want to share?
Well, what comes to my mind is, I don't know if you guys have seen that video that Stephen Covey did way back when with the jar and the rocks and the sand and the pebbles. That's been on my mind a lot this week because, like Mercedes was saying, she was paring back everything. And I thought, that's kind of what I've been mentally doing this last little while, is just paring back. I'm just trying to get rid of the sand right now because I feel like I'm living in the sand and I don't have room for my rocks, the big things, and I think when you are faced with things like that, you really realize how much sand you're living in.
Yeah.
I'm not a beach lover, so the sand's not my happy place. So that's just been on my mind of, okay, am I really putting in the big things first?
Yeah.
So,
Focusing on the things that matter. That's been huge for me lately, is focusing on what matters. So this is super interesting. I have been listening to this week's Follow Him podcast, which I listen to that off and on, just depending on my availability. And I generally like it. But this week it's powerful. It's so good. And what's really interesting is I keep having all these well-educated heart mothers of influence, different things just coming to my mind as I'm listening. And it's a woman that's their guest, and her name is Jennifer Pratt, Dr. Jennifer Pratt. And she said something that indicated that her work is about the family and the proclamation to the world on the family, which is, brought up another level of interest for me, right? And then so much of what she says, and this is not at all a negative comment about the two men that are on that podcast, but because I respect them and I love what they have to say and things like that. But she'll make a point and I'll think, yes, and I understand what she's talking about, and they'll say yes because da, 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 da. I think, no, because this, like, I heard you, I heard what she said, and she said this, and they got this other part to it. And I just kind of thought about how different men and women are and how we see things, and how we bring different things to a discussion because we see it from different places. Yeah, Lindsay. They mansplain it. Yes. And I felt also like there was so much that as she was talking, there was so much in the white spaces, the spaces between the lines, that I could pull from it. And it was just thing after thing after thing that I loved in what she was saying. And she talked about how just a little while ago, she had this impression come to her mind, and it was Mothers Who Know Do Less, which is the title of a talk by a woman that many of us know. Her name is Julie Beck, and it's such a beautiful talk. And if you Google it, you'll find it. But Mothers Who Know Do Less, and she thought, and she started thinking about that, reflecting on that, feeling like, okay, that's a message from heaven for me. So what can I do? What do I need to focus on? What can I remove so I don't have these distractions? And then right after that, she was given quite a large position of responsibility in her church, in a church kind of responsibility. Anyway, and she thought, wait a second, how does that work? And then she realized, it was in preparation for this. She really needed to focus on what was most important to make sure that that's what she was continuing to do, so she didn't lose that focus. So she was saying that she kind of uses this filter. And I was thinking, wow, we could create a filter of our own, whatever we felt like it needed to be. But for example, hers was, what does that have to do, whatever she's looking at doing or saying yes or no to, what does that have to do with the work? What did she say? The work with God's work, basically. And I thought, I love that, because that would, and she was saying one of the most important things she does that's God's work is teaching and training his children, her children. So wouldn't that be wonderful if that's how you approached your day? Creating a filter that you felt, especially if you kind of run that by heaven and you ask Heavenly Father, what's my filter? What's my most important work right now at this stage in my life? And make sure that you know what that is. And then use that filter as you move through your days and your weeks. Wouldn't that be great? Helping to figure out what can go. And I know that in theory, these things sound very easy, but I want to invite you to accept the idea or the possibility that it actually is simple in, I can't think of words, right? So help me out, in application as well. You just don't think it is until you actually like plant the seed, and then you go, wait a second, seriously? I can plant a seed and just nurture it and it'll grow? Like, I would have done that before now if I'd known that would really work, because we kind of do that with things. Because I watch these moms that are coming on and saying, oh my gosh, you guys, I have been a planner all my life. And I finally decided I'm just going to do Well-Educated Heart for this month. I'm just going to sit with my kids and read and then let them go explore and learn. And look what we did this month, and they get all excited. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. But until we try it, we don't know. So anyway, I'm just going to ask you to accept that possibility that what is simple in theory could also be simple in application. Yeah, Melissa, you're on. So I'm hoping you have something you want to share.
Yeah, this week I read a poem that kind of made me think similarly. I feel like somebody could read this and take it the wrong way and think they have to do everything. But I think if you look at it, it can also be seen the other way. So it's called The Behavior of Builders. Right before the poem has a scripture in this book. It says, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down, from Nehemiah 6:3. And I'll read it now. It says, to see a need and take it as your own, to lose yourself in some heroic task, is placing love upon the motive throne. By giving help before the needy ask, to turn deaf ears on ridicule and jest, be unafraid at threats of violence, gives victory to efforts of the best, assures the aid of righteous providence, to stay aloft at tasks of service great, and not come down to parley with the crowd, to be above self-seek form of hate, will line with silver every threatening cloud. Devotion of a builder building high will cause the things of low estate to die. And that's by Henry Spear. Henry C. Spear. And I found this poem and shared it with some friends. And I think as builders, we can think, I've got to build, I've got to build, I've got to build, I've got to build, I've got to do all these things all the time, all the time, all the time. But in this poem, it talks about doing the things of providence, taking that priority, not coming down to what everyone else is talking about and saying you need to do. And staying on that like higher level.
Right. What's that last phrase? I really like the behavior of builders. Yes, is what she said, is the title. I really like that last phrase. Can you read that again? Because it's kind of like having that focus lets that other stuff fall away.
Devotion of a builder building high will cause the things of low estate to die.
The things of low estate. Okay, I was taking notes. I don't know why I do this, because I'm recording, so I can go back, but I still take notes. To die. I love that. And I love that it is not the devotion of a builder building, but the devotion of a builder building high. And that's a significant, thing. I love that, Melissa.
I got it. Well, I found it in the Old Testament and the Fine Arts by Maus, M-A-U-S.
Yeah.
But it is referenced from Sermon Sonnets by Henry C. Spear, page 8, used by special permission.
Henry C. How do you spell spear?
Like a normal
weapon? Okay. Normal. Yeah. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, that's great. I'm imagining something difficult. He's a writer. Anyway. I love it. Okay, so I don't know where Lindsay went now. She's gone. When Lindsay comes back, oh, there she is. It's like she went to get food. I know it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I went to get my notebook so I could keep notes too. And when Melissa said mouse and the Old Testament and the Fine Arts, I thought, oh, I have a book like that called Christ in the Fine Arts. So I pulled it out to look at.
It's not fun. Yeah, so just go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
This is just the Old Testament version of it.
Yeah. I was just reading somewhere on Facebook or something and someone was using this as their morning devotional with their kids. And I thought, oh, I should look at it and see if there's stuff in there I could use.
Yeah, I love when someone mentions something and it reminds you either that you have that resource or it reminds you of another resource you have, and you think, oh, I'm going to pull that off the shelf or whatever. So I like that. Thank you. Okay, Lindsay Bunting, can you share with our friends what we got to do yesterday?
So you guys know that we have that little academy for young ladies. So we have 8 girls in there, and so Monday we were talking, and I don't know, we started getting excited about field trips, and then we wanted to take them to the Huntington, which is in Southern California, and it's just a garden. And they have Chinese gardens and Japanese gardens and Australian gardens. And so of course it worked right into all the things we've been talking about this month. And so we're like, okay, when can we go? Like they were so excited. And we're like, well, some of the girls are going to be out of town next month and going on vacation soon. So we went yesterday. It was like we planned it and went 3 days later. So we got to take 6 of the girls were able to go, and we took them down to the Huntington and walked around the gardens for hours. And they have an art museum there and a library. It was amazing.
It was so incredible.
Yeah, it was really fun. And they had, at the very end, we saved the children's garden for the very end because they were tired, and we thought Lori had the great idea to do at the end to give them that little burst of like energy at the end, because they had all these things to play with and the water features they can touch. And they might be 13 to 17, but they all just wanted to play, so they were so cute.
That was so much fun. And it was so great because they were, I was a little bit worried because, you know, when you're the person to introduce a thing and nobody else has experienced it, you know, you're just, it's important that everyone enjoy themselves, you know, you feel that kind of responsibility. And I thought, oh, they're teenage girls, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure how they're going to receive that. But they just, like, we went to the Chinese garden first, and Lindsay is brilliant. And so we get there and she says, okay, girls, we're going to meet back here. Just go and explore, you know. And so they just took off. And the mom part of me, because I've only gone with my kids, you know, in all different ages, and I kind of had to keep them with me, and we walked through together, whatever. But I thought, oh, that's so good. That's so smart. And so you just watch them all just disperse, and they got to explore whatever they wanted to. They got to discover on their own. And then when they came back, there was all of this excitement, like, we saw turtles. Did you guys see turtles? You know, we saw this. Or they'd call us over, you know, to show us something that they were seeing. And oh yeah, that's where the stained glass window came from. Sorry, Amber's asking. Yeah, so I put on our little Marco Polo group just a few little shots from there because I was so happy watching my friends, young and older, have this really positive experience there. And I kept hearing the girls saying, this is so amazing. I love this. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And that was really fun. And then just the moms, to have Lindsay and then another mom went with us too. And they had never been before, and have them saying, you know, noticing things and taking pictures of things and, you know, saying something about what they were seeing, you know. And then I'm like, as you can imagine, like major tour guide, you know, as I'm going through, I'm going, oh, look, there's this, and oh, there's that over there. Oh no, you guys, did you guys see that? You know, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to allow for, you know, them to discover for themselves, but I can't help it, you know. Anyway, it was such a great experience. We loved it. And to be out in nature and to have these immersive experiences, you know, you're in this Chinese garden and there are so many elements that are very, very, I mean, they're all these very traditional elements, the planting, the architecture, the details of the landscaping and the plants and trees, all of it. And then you go from there and you go into the Japanese garden, and it's so incredibly different. There's some similarities, but then so many different things. And well, and all throughout, because I'm trying to immerse myself in this garden experience so I can be inspired to actually be a better gardener in my home. So I'm hoping it rubs off, you know. And I was just experiencing the beauty of even just water, the importance of water in a garden, the sight of it and the sounds of it, you know, and the things that brings to a garden. Anyway, just all through the day, there were all these wonderful, different, varied experiences, but they were just finding joy in these beautiful creations, you know. And then you add the libraries, which are so cool. Some of the things that you can see in those libraries are just pretty incredible. And it was fun because I had just told the girls about a couple of things, and I thought, oh, I hope they're not bored, you know. I tried to like just walk through and not get sucked in, because I'm the one that will like read everything about every display in the exhibit, you know. I can stay till the place closes, you know. And so I was just like, I'm here for the girls. I need to just wander through so that when they're done, I can leave and not feel like, oh, but I want to stay. And they like, oh, is this the thing you were talking about? Is this that one about the, the birds? Like, yeah. And that's so cool. And so that was so much fun to see their hearts warming and opening up and them finding joy in these things too. Anyway, I'm talking about it too long, but it was incredible.
You're doing good. No, and then of course we have IKEA. We don't have one close to our home. It's like down there 2 hours away. So we studied Scandinavia this month too. So they were excited to go down to Scandinavia, or not to Scandinavia, to IKEA.
Yep. So we saw smorgasbords and we had Scandinavian food and drink and just saw Dala horses and all that stuff. Anyway, so that was fun. And who doesn't love wandering around IKEA? So it was just a really great day and so many beautiful things. And it's just, I don't know, to be around teenagers and see that kind of, those kinds of responses was heartwarming, I guess, it was just really good. Oh, Lindsay Watkins. I got to go to a Scandinavian import store in Maine. Oh, yes. Yes, that's so fun. I love that stuff. I hope this whole, someday I'm going to have a Scandinavian Christmas and just decorate, that kind of simplicity. We did make paper bag stars with the girls and then another activity where we did stars out of twigs. It was just fun to do these, watch them create something and have a positive experience with that too. I just love it. And then the girls I mentor, one of them, I have her researching that hygge, that HYGGE, right? I have her researching that and then adding some of that into her room and her home with her family. And then that's one of her assignments for the month of October, is to add that to her home and to her life. So I just think it's fun. Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see what I just almost did? Because one pair is not enough, or because two just looks cooler, right? You like that? Do you know how many times I'll find two on my head? Oh well, okay. So now it's somebody else's turn.
I'll just share a quick little thing that just happened at our house. So my kids have been really into starting a business lately. They all want to start a business. So my 9-year-old sent out flyers to all his friends, all the people in our ward and stuff. And hold on, don't interrupt. It's pick up leaves because it's fall. So he would go pick up their leaves and they're on their lawn. And my other son was going to do dog walking, and Ruby wants to do jam. So one of the ladies in our ward, she just sent a text over this morning and was like, can you send Max over at 9? I have a whole bunch of leaves to pick up. So he went over there. He's been over there for a couple hours, and she paid him in a jar of honey. And I love it because they have their own bees and they make their own honey and they sell it. And I think she paid him a little bit too, but he said he would just work for free. And so he brought home a whole jar of honey. I thought that was a fun way to pay.
Oh, I love it.
I'm excited for the honey.
I know. I was thinking, what can I do for them? I want
Right?
have pails of honey, but I want I think that's so fun just to know those bees made that honey. That's just so cool. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to this for a minute, and I did it last week too. Now, I'm just going to confess that this book, the cover is sweet in that it was her son who painted this picture, and so that's sweet. But the picture, if I just seen this book, I'd kind of be like, that's probably a book I'm not going to read. I don't know why. But there's something there. So this is the point. The point here is that just because a cover of a book doesn't compel you, don't discount it. Open your heart to whatever it is that needs to come to you that you need to learn about. I am learning that I've been assigned, and actually I've invited Lindsay, and she's going to help we are on this, in this little group that is working to add more things to Mothers University and just help, what do you call it? But help it be all that it's supposed to be. That's a great way to share. But anyway, but I'm learning how important Mothers University is. And I'm looking back and seeing we talk about it a lot in our Friday discussions. We talk about the principles, whatever the topics that we're talking about. A lot of times they actually line up with the months because we kind of do that on purpose, but also just the topics we talk about, because they're the things on our heart, line up with this idea of mother culture. And as I'm realizing how important it is, I think it's such a beautiful thing. And we were talking about it this week in a couple of meetings, that we realize that this learning is for us, and that it doesn't matter if we're on the schedule with anybody else. You know, what matters about somebody else studying a thing is what you could learn from what they're doing, right? But that's not to say that, oh, I should read that same book. It doesn't mean that. And just because the books are listed somewhere as, okay, here's some resource material for you, doesn't mean that you have to do everything on that list. Be prayerful and be open to inspiration about what God is directing you to do. Where do you spend your time and your focus? And be open to him directing you to pull a certain book off a shelf, you know, and just thumb through it. Also doesn't mean that you have to, if you feel compelled to go to a book, it doesn't mean you need to read the book from beginning to end. It might mean you can just thumb through it and find something beautiful that is for you at that moment. So this idea of Mothers University is to be this lifelong pursuit of learning. And here are some of the resources. You'll be directed to other resources. And as you are, see it as kind of a helpful responsibility to share that with other mothers, because so that they can learn something from what you've learned. Share it with the community, with the Mighty Network community or the Facebook community. Share it so that other people can be aware of resources that you find that you think are super helpful. Like this one, I love this book now. I highly recommend it. Again, this is just another vote for this book and all of the goodness that is in it. So let me just share a little bit. This is chapter 30, and this one is called How to Safeguard the Love of Learning. Chapter 30. So I'm just going to share a couple of thoughts from it. Oh, now I have zero glasses on my head and I go to reach for them. All right, people. Okay. All right. Perhaps the greatest wish of a home teacher is to have a happy homeschool. Okay, this is something that many of you are familiar with because many of you homeschool, but this applies to every parent. Many a mother cannot rest content until she is able to create an atmosphere of the love of learning. When she is able, the result will be a household of learners. I really like this picture. When she is able to create an atmosphere of the love of learning, the result will be a household of learners who delight themselves in the love of knowledge for its own sake. Okay, that is right there. That's it. That's what you're looking for. I mean, many of us, that's what we want, right? We want to create an atmosphere of the love of learning so that we curate this household of learners who delight themselves in the love of knowledge for its own sake. That was always my goal. I wanted my children to never lose that love of learning. And so far, so good. In the book, which I don't even know this book. And so that there's so many things about so many books have come up and are added to my book list from going through this book. And I've read maybe, and I'm not exaggerating, I've probably read 6 or 7 chapters out of this whole book so far. And I feel like it's this rich, incredible resource. Okay, so in the book, The Enchanted Places, a memoir of the real Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh, I read about one of the author's cherished memories. It is of his father, A.A. Milne, reading aloud. Okay, this one's written by Christopher Milne, his son. So this memory is of my father, A. Milne, reading aloud at bedtime. Sometimes his father made up a story on the spot about a little boy and his toys, right? And then Christopher Milne shares this story about his a dinner party that his father attended. Around the table at this dinner party sat preparatory schoolmasters who were extremely talkative. They all agreed that the biggest burden of their job was parental interference. Normally, A. Milne was quiet, but upon hearing the schoolmaster's complaints, he couldn't resist a speech of his own. And then it goes on. His own boy, he said, would often choose to hear the ideas of Euclid over Treasure Island for a bedtime story. He used this as an example rather rashly, wrote Christopher Milne, stating that all children have a keen interest in many things. This is his father talking to these men. Young children are eager to learn, he told them. And then we send them to your schools, and in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you have killed all their enthusiasm, which I loved. Obviously, not all teachers do this. There are some teachers out there that are wonderful, and we are so grateful for them. And they are the ones that just make learning magical. And so that's so great. But this is kind of talking about generally. At 15, our children, their only eagerness is to escape learning anything. No wonder you don't want to meet us. So I just liked that part. I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, then we talk about Charlotte Mason. She observed the lack of enthusiasm in the students of Great Britain, right? And this is in the 1800s. She strove to remedy it. She developed a new method of educating children, different than that of preparatory schools. Traveling by train in a circuit, she spread the news of the success of her method far and wide. Oh, if only we could have such a revival in American schools today. Children are born with God-given curiosity. If protected, chapter 30. If protected, a desire to know will stay alive and be engaged through high school and forever after. How is this curiosity schooled out of children? And that happens in homeschool too. Very, very regularly that can happen there too. What makes them care little for learning? First, we undervalue them, our children, as active and capable learners. That was my addition. But first, we undervalue them. Next, we depend upon an array of artificial inducements. Here, come look at this. See how cool this is. Rather than letting them explore and discover on their own, right? And then here's this. I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to read a little bit more. A hand is raised in the classroom. Is this going to be on the test? School teachers accustomed to this hardly bat an eye. They don't recognize it for what it is, a distress call. The student has surrendered to a broken system of education that squelches curiosity. Because then all you're doing is what? Learning for the test, right? Just for the test. Oh, thanks, Lindsay. Anyway, then, oh gosh, there's just so much. She talks about C.S. Lewis, and anyway, then self-education is the remedy, is what she said. There's no substitute for self-education. With long lectures, teachers can spoil a child's healthy appetite for learning. Her students derive knowledge not from lectures, but from good books. She put them directly in touch with the carefully chosen words of an author, an author who was enthralled with his subject. We all have read or been to lectures or something that talk about, living books, right? Finding those books that are written by people who love the subject that they're writing about. Anyway, there's just so much. Knowledge for the sake of knowledge is delightful. I love that. That's one chapter. And the other thing I felt like I should share with you is the table of contents, just so that you can kind of get an idea. Oh, can you see? Is it backwards or forwards? Forwards, okay. I don't know if you can see. Lindsay just ordered the book. Okay, so here it just, what is mother culture? The majesty of motherhood. Yes, mommy. Oh, that's one of those. Can I hear that? Does that anyway? Homemaking, a divine opportunity. Twice blessed. Just these titles of the chapters make me. I want to hear. A walk will do you good. I want to read that one. I haven't read that one yet. A different sort of mother, nourished by the seeds of ideas. More the mother, less the teacher. Be brave 5 minutes longer. What's that one about? A mother's little pearl of great price. Making brothers and sisters best friends. Who doesn't want that one, right? You want to read that chapter. For the love of it. Oh, free to imagine, pleasant words, quiet time, sanity, and devotion. Homemade multiplicity, how to safeguard the love of learning. That's the one we were just in. Where is the older woman in the Lord? Okay, that one's for me. Marriage harmony, like Mary and Martha, avoiding the not enough syndrome, safe in my garden. Anyway, this book was written. Oh, Mercedes has got her book. Look at it. She's got all these notes, little post-it notes and stuff in it. This book was written when she was giving her daughter was kind of struggling, in the throes of it, and she was trying to put together things that she knew and learned so that she could help her daughter. And I love that was the genesis of it, because it makes it so personal and real. It's mother to mother, which I think is really sweet. So I'm missing whatever was in the chat, so sorry about that. I'm just going to glance. But Mercedes, can you tell us what you love about this book? Obviously you've got it marked up, so it means something to you.
So the thing that I'm finding that's interesting, and it's not a new idea at all, it's in fact talked about often, but that I was actually just speaking with my husband about this yesterday. I change, and so what I read becomes either more or less important to me, maybe. And I'm sorry, we live by an airbase, so it's potentially very loud. So I bought this on Amazon months and months ago. Somebody recommended, I don't even remember where I heard I should read it. Bought it on Amazon, opened it up, and I was like, what is this? Like, I don't even want to read it. I also not a fan of the cover. And I'm so driven by what I used to go to the library, because I've always been a reader. I used to go to the library and literally pick books because of the way the cover looked.
Yeah.
And find enormous amounts of trash, but that's beside the point. So I picked it up when I saw that it was actually, I think just 2 weeks ago when you had brought it up, we were talking about, I don't even remember the chapter we were talking about. I think that was More the Mother, Less the Teacher chapter, or maybe it was the Beautifying the Home chapter. Anyway, and I thought, okay, maybe I should pick it up and read it again. And then I'm finding things to mark this time. I'm finding things that are important and interesting and, nothing groundbreaking. I've kind of also come to the realization this week that none of this is groundbreaking. It's just finding other people who maybe phrase it a little differently or more beautifully, or they're making a point that you don't hear very many people making because it's not popular, or it goes against so much of what we hear in modern culture, etc. So, I mean, all the chapters are so very different that, the things that I'm marking are all very different also. There's not necessarily an overarching theme, except for mother culture, right? These things that we bring into our lives that are important to us, that are important for us to share with our families and with those around us, ways to be a mom in the way you want to be a mom is kind of my overarching theme for it. So the name is apt. The chapters are so diverse. And I'm trying to think if there's a favorite thing that I found, and that's not necessarily the case, but she just talks about so many different things in here. I'm only about maybe 2/3 of the way through. I likely won't finish it before, October comes and we start something new. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how I have changed. That I picked something up months ago and was not interested at all, and then I picked it up now and I'm, oh yes, this is great. Oh, where are my post-its?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I'm so glad you shared that perspective, because that's really interesting how this happens. We change. we change so much through the process. And in fact, that comes up in that podcast that I recommended. It comes up in this idea of studying Isaiah, and you'll have to listen to it. It's just, it is worth making time to listen to it. And it's fine to break it up in multiple listening opportunities. Totally fine to do it that way, because you'll get more out of it. I think I shared it with a friend the other day, and she just, about a couple hours later, she just said, I keep having to stop the recording to get out my scriptures or get out a notebook, or she said, I'm never going to get through this, but it's so wonderful. I love it. So that was fun. Anyway, and I think it applies to so many people. Oh yeah, I forget what I read and what I hear, but I remember how it makes me feel. And that's important for us to remember. We don't have to remember all the words, but if it changes us, right, then it didn't do its job. And if we remember what we feel, is it so important that we remember all the words? Because we can go back and find the words, right? So it's that it changes us, and anyway, and we feel the feeling. So I love that. Okay. Any other thoughts as we're wrapping up? We get to the end so fast. An hour goes by quickly when you're with friends. Are you feeling the beauty that comes from gathering with other women and connecting and sharing? And Lindsay and I, as we've had some conversations this past week with these women that are on this that are involved in this Mothers of Influence work, one of the things that kept coming up, and that came up in the podcast, which is interesting too, is this idea that you have these horizontal relationships, and that importance of reaching out and connecting and linking arms or hearts being knit together, that kind of this horizontal connection and movement, but the importance of having that vertical connection, that you can have these without this. And that's great and it's wonderful. But if you have this connection and it is solid and sure, and we have our own ups and downs, but if we have connected with our God, we're making covenants and we're working and we're repenting every day and trying to get better, but we're keeping that connection, then all of this becomes so much more. And it's different because I'm not going to say all the reasons why I think. I'd be curious to have all of us think about that and maybe share what we think about the difference that comes, the difference that comes up. You guys are making me laugh, your comments in the chat. But how it changes, having that vertical connection changes the depth of the horizontal connections and makes it a much more meaningful part of our lives. So yeah, I love it. Okay, so just for those of you who don't get to read the chats because you're listening to this later, it just is, we're talking about living all together by each other, and then maybe and of course that moves to the idea of a compound. So yeah, let's make sure we get this cult idea really solid and sure. we're gonna create a compound. But seriously, if you could have a huge piece of property and have different homes on it, and you could have your friends be there and you could connect, you could get together for things and then have your own separate lives. Okay, seriously, that'd be great. In the fall, I'll make soup every week. You guys come get it, bring me your jars, right? It'll be lovely. Okay, any other thoughts before we go? Or any wrap-ups or takeaways or anything lovely like that? And please, if you guys have any thoughts, anything, I think I put this out on the Marco Polo thing, but you guys all know how to reach me. So if you have anything about Well-Educated Heart, Mothers of Influence, how that has changed you and how that affects your family. This conference that I speak in is Monday afternoon, 3:00. I feel like whoever's supposed to come and listen, hopefully will be there, and the message that they receive will be positive. It's called the Great, okay, hold on, this is kind of embarrassing. Do I know? It's called the Great Shakeup. Yeah, and I know that I have a link to it, and so I can give you the link to it. Anyway, it is on my Instagram account, and I think it's, and it's on my Facebook page. So it tells you where you can go. It's a free conference. You just have to sign up and give your email address, because everybody apparently wants that. And but then you can sign up and you can see any of the speakers. There were speakers this week. Lindsay's gone to a couple of them and listened to a couple of them. Good information. So, and thank you, Lindsay, for taking care of that. Yeah, Mercedes will add you to the Marco Polo group. Yeah, anybody that wants to be a part, hi Max. Anybody that wants to be a part of the Marco Polo group, let us know. Just message me and we'll do that. And we just have, it ebbs and flows, conversations back and forth. Also, Mercedes kids, do you see Max? Can you see the little boy in the other square? He was waving. You can be friends and wave. And there's Ruby too. It's so much fun. We like to see your faces. So that's fun when you guys get on with your moms too. So say hello, because you guys are all in different places, and that's so cool. Oh, awesome, Lindsay. Okay, so Mercedes, the link is right there. Education Shakeup. So there are a lot of people coming to this conference that are like some of those who were thrown into virtual learning and hated that, but then didn't want to go back to school, and they're kind of stuck and don't know what to do. So hopefully they'll find a lot of goodness there and be able to get answers to their questions. So anyway, thanks for coming here. Thanks for being around, and thanks for being my friends. I hope you have a really good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again next Friday. But reach out if you want to be included in any of the other group, like the Marco Polo conversations or things like that. So, okay, in the meantime, yeah, like Lindsay Watkins said, have a great day. Bye, friends.